Hello, good evening, and welcome to LSR7's third speaker series event of the year. My name is Katie Bergen. I am on the PR team here in the district, and we have a very exciting topic to talk about tonight, cybersecurity. I want to take a minute and introduce our guests. We have Executive Director of Technology, Kevin Whaley here. Hello, Dr. Whaley. Welcome to the speaker series event.
Good evening.
And we also have Shannon Adams, Network Administrator of Information Security. Shannon, welcome to the speaker series.
Good evening.
Can we just start by having each of you explain who you are, give us a brief bio, and what your job means as far as it goes for the district?
Sure, I'll lead off. So again, Kevin Whaley, Executive Director of Technology for the districts. I started way back in 2000 as a social studies teacher and track and cross-country coach. Worked my way through, became a technology, instructional technology specialist. They had a different title at the district I was in, but basically was in charge of helping train teachers to maximize technology use in classrooms. I left that role to become an assistant principal to middle school, and then settled in upstairs at SLC as the director of instructional technology and kind of the principal of the R-7 Online Academy before coming down to this seat a couple of years ago. So what this role does is it just oversees the entire technology programming of the district on the operational side. So everything from servers and switches to what we're going to talk about tonight with cybersecurity to making sure teachers and students have devices, just kind of runs the whole gamut of technology integration in Lee Summit. Shannon?
Hi, I'm Shannon Adams. I'm the Network Administrator of Information Security. I just actually started here in May with the information team. I used to work for the state of Missouri in the judicial branch with the courts. So the school system is definitely different. I'm very excited to be here though. And I do a lot with our security, watching everyone's computers, making sure that no viruses are happening or malware, making sure that we're all safe, making sure that our data isn't being exploited outside of our network.
Excellent. Shannon, we're happy you're here. So I'm going to just give our audience at home just a brief overview of the format tonight. We're going to ask Dr. Whaley and Shannon some questions about cybersecurity. They're going to tell us about our district's commitment to being safe and secure in the online space. And then we're going to open it up to questions. You'll see that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. That is a great place to push questions that may come to you as we go through the presentation. For the most part, most of the time we save them for the end, but you can push a question there at any time. I do want to say with this topic, part of having a plan of and a commitment to safety and security is not always sharing specific details about all of the things that we're doing. So we very much want to give our audience at home an idea about what our commitment to cybersecurity looks like, but there may be some questions that we're not able to answer precisely because of security reasons. So Dr. Whaley and Shannon, if we cross into that territory, I know you'll let us know, but we'll do our best to answer the questions from you guys at home. So Dr. Whaley, I'm going to just start us off with a really broad question, which is, what does cybersecurity mean for an educational organization? When we say that we are taking actions in the area of cybersecurity, what does that look like for LSR7 specifically?
Absolutely. So just like everything else we do in the district, we put kids first. And I'll mention probably again, student data is a very valuable commodity if there's a bad actor that's out to get that information. So if you think about a kindergartner, if their information was compromised either at home or at school or anywhere else through a doctor's office, that information could be used, for 16, 17, 18 years before a credit report was even run, for instance. And so we really take the safety of student data and staff data for that matter very, very seriously. And so cybersecurity became a big topic for us a couple of years ago when it became a part of the comprehensive school improvement plan for the district, which is CLIMB, and it specifically calls out our goal for our district is to provide a safe and secure and modern technology infrastructure. So things that you've probably seen through board meetings is we have adopted a new endpoint security tool. We are requiring multi-factor authentication, which I think Shannon will dive into here in just a little bit. We're looking at the ways we monitor systems completely differently now, and clear down to hiring an expert such as Shannon to help us kind of guide us through all of that work to make sure our data is kept safe.
Excellent. So I'm probably a very good stand-in for the average layman person who, understands cybersecurity at a very superficial level, understands how, cybersecurity through the lens of how it impacts how I log in, or some of the measures, how they impact how I interact with our computer systems. One of the things I have questions about is the concept of phishing. We hear about phishing a lot in the news. Shannon, what is phishing, and how can people avoid being phished online? Because I know that concept is something that you guys are trying to educate staff about a lot too.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that phishing is the number one way for your information to get exploited. So phishing is the practice of a user being tricked into giving personal information out, such as their social security number, anything about them, passwords, usernames, date of birth, anything that is attached to them. And then that cyber criminal is going to take that information and going to do whatever they want with it. So if they have your social security number, they can sign up with a credit card, a phone plan, anything that you can use a social security number with. So we're trying to get our users to understand that you have to be careful. We might get an email from Dr. Whaley, but it might not actually be Dr. Whaley. It might be some crazy person trying to get some information, and hopefully, do what they want with that information. So it could be student information, it could be teacher or staff information, parent information. I mean, we have all of it. So we're trying to get our teachers to understand that, maybe it's not so wise to click on a phishing link or any link in any email, or maybe answer specific questions that deal with student information. It's better to confirm that you're talking to the real person and not just Joe Schmo from down the street that has nothing to do with your child's information. So it's really important just for anyone to make sure that if you're getting an email and it seems legit, make sure that you're looking at the email address that it's coming from. If it's coming from the school, it's going to be at lsr7.net. If it's coming from your doctor's office, it's going to be whatever your doctor's office's email address is. If it's coming from like a Google support, it's going to be at Gmail or Google support or something very similar. Double check that the spelling of the email is correct. So if it's coming from Dr. Whaley, make sure that Dr. Whaley's name is actually spelled correct, not with a bunch of extra letters in there. So it's just pay attention to the small details because they can get you anyway.
And Dr. Whaley, you had mentioned multi-factor authentication, and I know that's something the district has rolled out. And for me as a user in the district, that means lots of extra layers to how we log in. But tell us a little bit more about multi-factor authentication for those of us who aren't familiar with it. What is it and how does it help? How does it provide a more secure environment for us?
Absolutely. Multi-factor is one of the most beneficial precautions you can take to keep your information secure. So if you think of it sometimes it's called two-factor or multi-factor. There's a number of ways to do that, but it starts with logging in with your username and password. I think we've all experienced a time where you got an email or an alert or something that says your email has been compromised, or someone's logged into your account, such as Netflix or PayPal, and you're wondering, how in the world did this happen? Well, somewhere along the way, a password that you might use over and over and over again has become compromised, and it's on a list somewhere out on the internet. And so, as we all know, there's people that have a lot of time that will sit there and try and use those email and password combinations to do whatever they can to wreak havoc on your personal life. And so what multi-factor does after your username and password is you actually are asked to present a second method of authentication. So for instance, in our district, we're using a tool on cell phones where once you log in, it sends a push notification, and the user will click, it'll ask you, is this you? And you simply click yes, and it lets you log in. So, that can be biometric, it can be through a text message, it can be through a code that's sent to your email. And this is a pretty timely topic because around, 11 or 12 o'clock today, I drive a Ford, and Ford has sent that in the coming weeks, multi-factor will be required for all Ford account users. So if you haven't come across that yet, banking, PayPal, anything that you can put a second form of authentication on, that's definitely something you should do.
So we see organizations using this as a security measure, but is multi-factor authentication something that anyone can set up on their personal accounts?
Absolutely. And Shannon, jump in at any time. Google, Netflix, PayPal. There are a number of companies that are moving towards multi-factor. If you're not sure if they have it, it's a quick reach out to their support saying, hey, do you offer multi-factor as a level of security? They'll either tell you yes or no. I would almost guarantee if they don't have it yet, they're probably going to. So I know most banks definitely are using multi-factor. So I don't think that's a really foreign concept to most people that are going to view this. But think about those things in your daily life about, you know, how can I really protect myself and be proactive and go out and find those websites that you go to and go ahead and set that multi-factor up.
What's great is some of those apps allow you to put multiple websites and multiple accounts in the same application. So you don't have to have 12 different multi-factor authentication apps. You can just have one with all of them in there.
Excellent. I have some work to do after this meeting. Dr. Whaley, what else is the district doing to protect student data and information?
Yeah, so it was actually, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, a board policy came along that it became a best practice to really start monitoring where student data is loaded. So for instance, if a teacher wants to use a website and it requires a student account to be created, what teachers are asked to do is first evaluate the tool. Does it have an educational need or does it have educational value? And the most important thing is, are you going to ask students to create an account? At that point, if you're asking students to load any personal information, first name, last name, username, any password, it has to run through a process of approval. So what we're looking for as a district is a couple of things. Is it FERPA compliant? So is that tool going to take that student information and sell it to a third party? Are they only going to use it for educational purposes or, you know, app development? Basically, are they keeping that student information safe, secure, only using it for that purpose? And then most importantly, what is their approach to if something is breached? Are they going to reach out to the district and let us know that this is a potential problem? Do they have cyber insurance? And so depending on the company, some are really easy to read their terms and their privacy agreements. Others aren't so clear. And so our purchasing department does a great job working with those vendors to say, hey, we noticed that you've got some gaps in your terms and conditions. We would like you to sign the Lee Summit student privacy addendum or data privacy addendum. And so it fills the gaps and it covers everything that I just talked about to make sure we're keeping that information secure.
So I imagine, you know, whether you're navigating this space as an expert like you two are, or just a person who's just concerned about and passionate about having best practices, that this can be sometimes hard to navigate. There's a lot of overwhelming information. So Shannon, what are some other best practices when it comes to cybersecurity, things that everyone who's listening, folks at home, could implement today if they wanted to kind of improve their practices in this space?
Yeah, so bouncing off the last question, if you guys use Chrome, you can go into the settings and you can see what extensions are using what information that you've given it. So for us at R-7, we use Gmail, and so you can add extensions that help you check your grammar, like Grammarly, and you can add Bitmojis or all kinds of fun things. But to have an extension on your browser, you have to give it X amount of data or X amount of information. But if you're no longer using those extensions, I would suggest turning them off. That way that data is not being given to them just free will, and you forget that it's kind of out there. So I would suggest always doing like a little update for yourself. Like, okay, well, today I've noticed that I'm not using this extension anymore, or I'm not using this app. Go ahead and just remove it or turn it off and remove whatever permissions that it has. That way that your information is safe. Another thing, Chrome, if you save any of your passwords to it for any website, it'll actually tell you whether or not your password has been compromised. And so if it's been compromised, I would definitely change it as soon as possible. Best thing for passwords, at least have them 14 characters or more, one uppercase, one lowercase, and at least one special character or number. The longer the better. I would not use any personal information in your password. What I suggest to people is pick 3 words. Just look around the room, pick them, and then make a little password. People make sentences with passwords. Person I worked with used to have like a 30-character password. I don't remember how he would remember how to type that every day. I would not, but superpowers on security teams. Update your software frequently. I know at R-7 we do that for our teachers and staff, but at home you might not do that very often. I would get on a monthly schedule, like the first Monday of every month. What did I say that? The first Monday of every month, I would just go through your application, see what needs to be updated. Do you have a Windows update? Do you have a Chrome update? Do you have some other browser on your phone? Do you have any applications that need to be updated? Does your phone need to be updated? I would make sure that you guys do that as soon as possible, because sometimes those updates help fix bugs that are exploiting more information that you don't know about. Don't share personal information online. Make sure you know, if you do a Google search of yourself, what are you seeing? What information are you seeing? What personal information is out there? How shut down is your account? Like, can I go to LinkedIn and find your birth date, where you live, what your job is? Can I go to Facebook and find even more information? The more information that someone can find, the easier it is to crack a password, or call into a school and be like, hey, I'm going to check my kid out for the day, but he's not actually your kid, or she's not actually your kid, it's some other person. So make sure that your accounts are locked down as much as possible. Share as little as possible, unless you know who is on your Facebook page. I know lots of people have thousands and thousands of friends, but make sure do a yearly clean out. Make sure it's not Joe Schmo again down the street that's still on your Facebook account and doesn't need to be. Remove them as much as possible, or as frequently as possible. When you're going to a website and you're buying something, make sure that the URL has a HTTPS or a lock on it. That means that it's secure. That means that when you are entering your banking information or any personal information, it's safe. I know credit cards still get hacked, and that's beyond the little lock and the HTTPS. That's more of a website kind of thing for the company, but make sure that when you are checking out, that those are the 2 things that you are looking for. In your email, going back to phishing, when you get an email and there's a link in it, I would suggest always hovering over the link. And if you hover over the link, in the bottom right-hand corner or bottom left-hand corner, there will be a URL preview of where it's taking you. If you don't recognize the URL, like for Walmart, it should be walmart.com/whatever. If it's not that, don't click on it. Try and stay away from those links. They try and get you every time. I promise it's not worth it. Try to store all your information in one place, but not online. So store it at home in a lockbox, or if you do store it in a notebook, make sure that notebook is locked away at school. Make sure that your passwords aren't on sticky notes under your keyboards. Trust me, students look.
That's one of my questions, Shannon. What about Post-its right next to your computer screen?
Oh, as much as I love Post-its, don't put information on it that you don't want someone else to find.
And we don't endorse products, but I would highly recommend a password manager. So you have to remember one very long password, and then all the passwords that are stored in that are encrypted. And what that means is it's hidden. You can't just view them, or somebody can't view them. And so what password managers help you do is it will generate some ridiculously long and complicated passwords for you, but you don't have to remember them. And that's probably one of the best ways that you can vary your passwords among sites. And I would especially, very difficult, because sometimes when you set up an account, you get in a hurry and you use a really familiar password. Try your best to use that password manager to have a different password for everything you use. And so that way, if one password gets compromised, it's only that one site instead of your entire life. And another tip, when kind of Shannon, what she said kind of reminded me too, when it comes to password complexity, she mentioned sentences and things like that. Be creative too. So although it's too short, if you want to make your password I love school, make the O's in school zeros and an exclamation mark at the end. So something you can actually type very quickly. And if it's a sentence like she mentioned, it's surprising how quickly you can type that sentence in instead of just trying to remember a password. So Shan had great tips.
I'm going to go for Springsteen lyrics and then I'll never forget. Anything else we need to know, Shannon?
I don't think so.
Well, Dr. Whaley, tell us a little bit about what you're doing to excite and engage staff around cybersecurity, because I know we've received a lot of emails from your team about things that we need to be doing and changes that are being made in the cybersecurity space, but I also know you guys are working on some special things.
Absolutely. So this is something we've wanted to do for a long time. We just haven't had the staff to help kind of shepherd us through the process. So it's really simple. But this year we started off with required training regarding phishing. So every staff member that was in the district or gets hired has to go through training about phishing, cybersecurity, student data. So we think that's kind of the baseline that's really important. But also for October, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So this is a very timely topic. And so every staff member each Monday in October receives an email with just a quick one-page quick tip sheet. So for instance, this week was all about phishing. So what is it? How do you avoid it? What to look for? And we want to just keep that awareness flowing. And so the last week in October, we're going to send a quiz out. And whichever department or school has the highest overall score average combined with the highest overall participation will get breakfast burritos brought to them by members of the technology department. So we're really looking forward to that. It's something simple, maybe not the most exciting topics, but maybe a breakfast burrito will help help.
I think that school staff can be engaged by burritos. I think that's probably a winning combination. Cybersecurity and burritos. What could go wrong?
Absolutely.
Okay, I actually have one question left for you guys. So this would be a great time for members of our audience. If you have questions about some of the topics and responses that we've received from our panelists here, if you have questions for them, this would be a great time to put them in that Q&A box and we can address them. But my last question is probably maybe one of the more important questions to ask, which is, how can parents, students, staff, whomever report concerns about a possible breach if something feels off or they think there may be a disclosure of student data? What should they do?
Yeah, so it's super easy. Just go to our website, lsr7.org, go to the departments tab, then go to operations services, and then under technology, there should be right in the middle. It should say data privacy concern form. So if there's anything that you're concerned about with your students' information or even staff, if you're concerned about your information, fill out the form, it gets sent to us. We take a look at it, and then if we need follow-up, we will contact you as soon as possible, and we'll start rolling on that concern form and seeing what we can do to help.
Excellent. Dr. Whaley, anything to add?
I don't have anything. I'm proud of the work the district has done and the importance the community and board have placed on cybersecurity as evidenced by being in the CSIP. That's really helpful when we push forward with initiatives. I think last year we had the 14-character password change, which we got some grumblings, which I totally understand. But I think people are also very aware. Schools are they're a big target right now. Probably the biggest or one of the top 5, I would guess, targets for cyber attacks and trying to capture that information. So I think everybody's aware of how serious it is and how quickly an incident can occur. So proud of the work, proud of our staff for embracing the changes, just taking it in stride and saying, hey, I know this is different. It's going to cause me more steps, but I understand. So really appreciative of the entire staff being willing to do those things.
Well, Dr. Whaley and Shannon, I'm appreciative of you for sharing your insight and your time with us. We also have a first in our short speaker series history in that there are no questions for you guys. You guys have just crushed this presentation. There's not anything that anyone has left to ask. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank our audience members at home. We are rolling through our speaker series schedule and having events at least once a month. Our next event is actually going to be on Monday, October 24th, and members of our career education department will be talking about the Diploma Plus program. So we hope you can make that and wish you all a pleasant evening. Have a great night, everybody.